I was so enamored by the whole concept. I'd never been to Detroit, but having grown up in Brooklyn, I just felt like there were a lot of similarities there, even though I'd never been. And certainly I was enamored by the history of Detroit and what a big role it plays in American history. Moving to Detroit wasn't even part of the conversation. But soon after that, I realized as we started to develop really the storyline of this brand, and we went back and forth. At first it was, is it just Shinola? Is Shinola Detroit just on the watches? And we decided before we launched, you know what? No, we are 100% standing behind Detroit. So Shinola Detroit is on everything. You know, we weren't trying to be opportunistic by putting the name Detroit in our brand. We're committed here. We're walking our talk. We're creating those jobs. We're not going to walk away from Detroit if, like, you know, I don't know, Tallahassee becomes, you know, popular. We certainly use the technology that's out there, and the social platforms are a perfect place to have this kind of storytelling. As we grow this brand, we're learning how to storytell and what's relevant. And for us, you know, so far the most effective storytelling has been around the people. You know, the people making the product, the story of making those products. It becomes a little challenging when you're competing on a fashion level. So as we grow the brand and want to build our female audience, talking about how things are made or talking about manufacturing sometimes is challenging when you're competing with Tiffany's or Cartier or Michael Kors. We definitely control the story, and I think that goes back to the consistency. It also goes back to making sure your North Star doesn't switch too much. You know, so if it's about workforce development and job creation, then that's what it's about. Certainly that's sort of the core of our mission, and it's been a big part of our branding. But where it has been challenging is when you're trying to sell a $700 watch or a $950 bag. We certainly use the technology that's out there, and the social platforms are a perfect place to have this kind of storytelling. You know, we call ourselves casual luxury or approachable luxury, but it really wasn't the luxury consumer that were the early adopters of this brand. It was the people who, buying a Shinola watch, buying a $700 watch was a considered purchase. So more of the person maybe buying Madewell or J. Crew was looking at a Shinola watch, and that was something meaningful, and maybe they waited a couple of paychecks to buy that watch. But when it's such a considered purchase and it's not just like this fashion throwaway thing, you have an inherent brand ambassador in that person. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a plane and someone next to me is wearing a watch, and it's not just the flights going to and from Detroit. And, you know, I'll say, oh, nice watch, and they just launch into the story, oh, have you heard about this brand? And it's amazing to hear that.